The man of steel is headed to the city of steel. The nation's best linebacker has his new home in the NFL.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go. It's the mobile hit twist on the same classic Monopoly, but now you can join your friends as well. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or on Google Play. Happy Monday to all. As always, I'm Grayson Boone, joined by former Wolfpack defensive tackle Kenton Gibbs. As we all saw at the end of last week, the NFL draft took place in Kenton's hometown of Detroit, Michigan. And Wolfpack fans were proud to see where Payton Wilson, the nation's best linebacker, received his new home in the NFL. Payton Wilson was drafted late in the third round by the Pittsburgh Steelers with the 98th overall pick. It felt like there was a lot of surprise based on social media reactions. It felt like he was kind of slipping in the draft per se. There was a bit of a run on linebackers that seemingly all got drafted ahead of Payton Wilson, which was shocking because, like I said, he won basically every defensive award there was to win. And so NC State fans felt a little disrespected for Payton. They felt like they were watching him slip. But Kenton, after the rest of the draft has played out and Payton winds up with the Steelers, a franchise known for their defense, how do you feel that Payton Wilson's draft saga panned out?
I think it panned out exactly as we thought it would earlier in the year, right? Like I had talked about having Ryan Roberts on of Rise and Draft, who said, again, this is years ago. This is 2-3 years ago, I believe. Payton Wilson is a first-round pick if he can stay healthy, and then he misses the entire season after that. So, like, it's very much so a situation where the health concerns are there. I didn't even know he didn't have an ACL, brother. You could have asked me. I got 2 fresh ones for you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really need them. I ain't using them for too much these days. But in all seriousness, it's kind of a culmination of positional value as well as injury history kind of working together to create where he was. Because if you look at where linebackers were taken in this draft in terms of off-the-ball linebackers, how many went in the first round?
0, that's right.
There was not a single off-ball linebacker drafted in the first round this year. It's just not a position that teams see as having a ton of value. And then you combine that again with a lot of injuries, and it's like, well, why would we take a high round draft pick on that when we have players who are like, yes, there were, I believe, 3 linebackers drafted before him, but all of those linebackers were either younger or healthier or both. And so, it's disappointing to see, but this is kind of, I knew that things had kind of gotten overblown when he ran that 40 and everybody's like, oh, he's late first round, early second round now. I'm like, it's now who's saying that? Right? Because, yes, we know that the draft works in a way that only one GM has to believe in you at that spot. But I'll tell you, it's a situation where, again, I kind of saw this coming based upon the chatter that I was hearing draft-wise for Payton from, the insiders who have this. I'm not super surprised.
As the common saying goes, disappointed but not surprised. Yeah. And I think, years of all of us watching the NFL draft, and you watch guys that are perceived to be first and second round talents slide a little bit, and then you see the immediate panic kind of spill out onto social media. And you kind of felt that a little bit for Payton Wilson on Friday night. But after the rest of the draft ended and I had more time to chew on it, he went about exactly where you thought he might go. I think the third round sounds about right for Payton Wilson with the injury history that he does have. And the NFL teams are looking at these draft picks as an investment. And a guy that has a sheet like Payton Wilson does, I can fully understand why that would scare some franchises. The amount of surgeries that this guy's been through, played at NC State through 5 years, a lot of wear and tear. He plays at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And, that's not going to change once he gets to the NFL. But for franchises that are really banking big time on a pick like Payton Wilson to pan out, I can understand why some teams will get cold feet. But for him to land in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, a franchise that is known for their defense, the Steel Curtain decades ago, I think this is a great spot for Payton to, get up to the league, learn what it takes to stay in that league, and then develop and take off from there. So it'll also be really cool to see Payton team up with Russell Wilson. For maybe those that have forgotten, now Russell Wilson is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I'd have to imagine a lot of NC State fans may have just found their team to root for next year if you happen to be looking for one. But we all know what kind of talent that Payton Wilson is. Like Kenton mentioned, if he's healthy, he is a first-round talent. We've seen this over the course of his career here, and especially last season, completing an entire season basically 99% healthy, minus the fourth quarter of the Clemson game.
Yeah.
And when he's out there and he is healthy and he's firing on all cylinders, he is a nightmare to account for. And so the NFL is a different game. And Kenton, you can speak to this probably better than I can, but it's way faster, it's way more physical, and the risk is also higher in the NFL because these are fully grown men running at you at 1,000,000 miles an hour. He obviously has the talent to get up to this league and flourish. He has the physicality to get up to this league and flourish. And so I think Pittsburgh's a really good spot for him. It's also a spot where he won't have enormous expectations right out of the gate, which will also help his development. And you're not throwing him into the system saying, all right, kid, we're counting on you this season to help us get back to the playoffs or whatever that may be. It's not going to be that. And I've already seen some articles saying that they might start him out on special teams, which if I'm a kick returner and I know Payton Wilson is running down the field at me, I might just fair catch for the entire game. Why even risk getting absolutely steamrolled by Payton Wilson with a head start? Yeah, no thanks, buddy. Payton Wilson in the third round of the Pittsburgh Steelers. We're still over the moon excited for this guy. You talk about ambassadors for NC State in the professional leagues. We talk about that a lot, the representation. There is perhaps no one that will represent NC State better than Payton Wilson. And we can't wait to see how that transpires over the course of his NFL career.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about the Steelers and being known for defense. You only got to go back to the Steel Curtain. You can go to the last time they were Super Bowl champions with Troy Polamalu and Harrison and Ryan Clark and all those guys that, they hit folks so hard. They changed league player safety rules based on those teams and what they were doing to people. And Joey Porter as well there. And now you're seeing a very similar situation where you got Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, all those guys. Again, even if Payton were thrown in today and told like, hey, go be one of our starting inside linebackers, I would not feel terrible about that because up front, they are very solid. They are much more formidable up front than many people would like to believe. And it's linebackers love playing behind good defensive linemen. That's just as simple as it is. It's just like any job you do, it's made easier by the people who are in front of you doing it well, right? Like if you're an accountant, it's a lot easier to do your job if the bookkeeper is giving you the appropriate numbers and you know that the data is going to be right. If you're a cement layer, hey, this person is pouring, the person who does the mixing of the cement does it so perfectly, I don't have to worry about anything like that. It's the same type of deal here. This is a situation where, again, Payton's going to a talented group in front of him, talented group on the back end behind him with Minkah Fitzpatrick, Joey Porter Jr. Ain't that crazy? His son is now a Steeler, a lot like Jeremiah Trotter's boy getting drafted by the Eagles this year. But it's a situation where they have lots of talent all over the place. And I think Payton will fit in with that. The question is, will he stay healthy? Because if that answer is a yes, not only would I say he's going to be a multiple-time Pro Bowler, but if he has 10 healthy years in the league, I'd say go ahead and get him fitted for a gold jacket.
Payton Wilson with 8 to 10 healthy years in the NFL, he's going to make a whole lot of noise. We know how that goes with Payton Wilson. So
yeah, Luke Kuechly, the Panthers linebacker who was not even arguably their greatest linebacker of all time, said that is the best linebacker in the draft. I have watched the tape on these guys. That's the guy. So, the Panthers taking another linebacker. Shout out to Tepper and company. By the way, Panthers fans, if y'all need another team, I got a team that's also Big Cats. We got a Lee McNeil over here. Come on. But in all seriousness, it's a huge cosign by a guy like that. And again, anybody who watches the tape and watches the film, there is not a single argument against the film that says that Payton Wilson does not have success written all over him in the league. It's just about the injury, and it's just about the injuries and whether or not his body can hold up.
Coming up next, we'll discuss how the rest of NFL draft weekend waged for NC State draft eligible players after a quick word from our sponsors. Game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. And I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You've already talked about that. But there's just so much to discuss about this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's even more. You can get unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes. There's cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with and hilarious emojis for taunting friends after you smash their buildings to heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting each and every day. They have constantly changing tournaments and challenges. They include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. There's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So go get off the bench, download it now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Middle portion of our Monday show, now getting into the rest of the draft/signees for NC State this NFL draft. Dylan McMahon, our center, was the other NC State draft pick. He was selected by the Philadelphia Eagles in the 6th round, 190th overall. Kenton, how do you feel about Dylan McMahon's future in the NFL?
I'll tell you what. He's walking into some big shoes to fill. I'm talking size 24, Shaq size shoes. But if you saw what I saw last season with the backup centers for the Eagles, he's walking into a damn good position. He's walking into a great one, really. And it's interesting that both of our guys who got drafted landed in the state of Pennsylvania. But the more important thing here is, again, Dylan landed in a hell of a situation. I mean, again, you'll never be Jason Kelce per se, but you're you, and you're surrounded by all pro talent everywhere. Mailata, Johnson, there's plenty of talent on that roster in terms of offensive line talent. And so, again, it's not a situation where you're the first round pick, you've got to come in and dominate right away. It's literally like, if you come in and give us Precious Little, we'll be all right with that. If he comes in and is able to be the starter, it's a hell of a steal, which he very well could end up being for the Eagles.
In just a second, after I read off the rest of our players, we'll ask, who ended up in the best situation. It just might be Dylan McMahon. You talk about Jason Kelce hanging him up after this last season. A door of opportunity being potentially wide open for Dylan McMahon, seeing snaps next year. So I think this is an excellent spot for McMahon, and the bump to his draft stock that we saw in just one calendar year was spectacular. So we're looking forward to Dylan McMahon continuing that ride up to the next level. And then now getting into our 6 undrafted free agent signings after the conclusion of the NFL draft. We had Savion Jackson and Poogie Kennedy both signed with the LA Chargers. Trent Pinnock signed with the Indianapolis Colts. Long snapper Joe Shimko signed with the Arizona Cardinals. Cornerback Shaheem Battle signed with the New York Jets. And our place kicker from last year, Braden Narvison, signed with the Tennessee Titans. So now I will ask the question, Kenton, who do you feel ended up in the best scenario?
The more I think about it, it's only really 2 guys that I would say ended up in scenarios that are not only favorable, but ended up in scenarios that are downright like, that's a delicious situation to be in. Like that's a situation that I want to be in a little bit. And I'd say you're looking at Savion Jackson because I think that he's a hardball guy. I think he's tough-nosed. He's versatile. he can play multiple. You can play him in multiple positions. You can play him at the 3. You can play him in a heavy set at the 4I or 5. You can use him very versatilely depending on what Harbaugh wants to do with scheme-wise. And then, of course, Dylan McMahon. I think it's hard. As much as people are like, oh, man, there's pressure to replace Jason Kelce, you're not going to be Jason Kelce. Nobody's expecting that. Nobody's going to be like, oh, my God, you missed a block. You're not Jason. Like, that man is probably the most recognizable and one of the 3 greatest centers of all time. Nobody is ever going to say like, oh, man, you're not him. You're not good. So I'd objectively say that probably Dylan or Savion ended up in great situations because, again, when you look at those two and who they are in the alignment with the personality of their team and with what their team needs, because I know that Chargers roster, very top-heavy. You've got a Bosa brother over there that is absolutely crushing it off the end. Khalil Mack doing a very similar deal. But on the interior, they were very soft. And that was where they got exploited a lot last year. So both of those guys, I'd say, end up in positions where there is need, there's a personality and culture fit. I think they can both do great things in the situation they've been put in.
You talked about Savion Jackson being potentially a Harbaugh guy out in L.A. I think potentially the other Wolfpacker that's going to L.A., Poogie Kennedy, could be the best situational fit. And with Harbaugh taking the job with the Chargers, he's looking to implement a brand new identity. And he loves his teams being tough and physical. And Poogie Kennedy is very much both of those. And what Poogie Kennedy brought to NC State's secondary last year, I think can potentially translate very well to the Chargers secondary. He has the ability to be super effective in coverage. He has the ability to get downhill and punish somebody in the run. He covers a lot of space in a short amount of time. He's a very smart player last year at the nickel for NC State. I think he can really rise above here and make a name for himself in the NFL. So my answer is Poogie Kennedy. My off-the-cuff answer is potentially Joe Shimko. Now, Joe Shimko won the long snapper award last year, the best long snapper in the country, and I believe he had the ridiculous stat of 0 bad snaps over the course of the entire season. And Kent and I were just talking about this a couple minutes ago. It's kind of funny that Shimko basically had the perfect season as a long snapper, yet doesn't get drafted just because of the positional value there. But you talk about being the best in the country at what you do and ending up in Arizona. I think he can probably start right away in Arizona. And you talk about a guy that can have a long tenured NFL career, you might just be looking at Joe Shimko. And so he could certainly have a very quiet but very long career in the NFL. And, we're undoubtedly excited for every single one of our guys. We can't wait to see what each of our 8 signees into the NFL can do with this opportunity. Like we always talk about, we're always looking for the next big ambassador for NC State in the professional level, the next Bradley Chubb or the next Russell Wilson, the next Phillip Rivers, whether it's Payton Wilson or whether it's Braden Narvison or any of the other names I mentioned in between. We're stoked for our 8 new Pac Pros. We're so excited to see them represent NC State for the remainder of the professional career. Another year has gone. We're sending 8 more guys to the league. Another notch on Dave Dorn's resume that he can be extremely proud of. This program can be extremely proud of. And this is a massive win for NC State over this past weekend. 8 new faces to the NFL. Couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah, and next year there's going to be more draftees out of NC State, and I'm expecting that number to shoot up from 2. I'm just going to be quite honest with you. I see multiple guys that they may not be early guys, but there's multiple guys next year that I have an eye out for. And I will say this, there's one in particular that could go earlier than any player went this year in terms of what his skill set allows him to do. And we'll get into that on a later date. But as it stands right now, I really and truly think, again, Dorn's got this program going in the right direction. That spike year, it's statistically proven. It bears out at the FBS or at the Power 4 level. Teams that win championships send the most guys to be drafted. That's just what it is. Look at Florida State this year. Teams who win championships send the most guys to be drafted. So let's see how this thing bears out for us next year.
Coming up next, we're going to round out our Monday episode talking about NC State baseball, completed the sweep over Ball State over the weekend, after a quick word from our sponsors. Our second sponsor of the day is FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, and MLB is now in full swing. FanDuel is the place to bet on each and every game. Right now, new customers can get $150 back in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right, $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Our third sponsor of the day is Gametime. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. This makes getting MLB tickets now even faster and easier. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, you name it, they got it, all coming on an app that is super easy to use. Their all-in pricing feature shows your total upfront, so you have zero surprises to be expected at checkout. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect upon arrival. And with flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and use redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. That's LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Last couple of minutes here on Monday. Now time to talk about NC State baseball. They swept Ball State over the weekend. Now you may be wondering, Ball State, I thought we were in the middle of ACC play. It was a non-conference series over this weekend, and playing a MAC opponent in Ball State, the expectation was to sweep, and anything less than that would have been a failure. The message was obviously received. NC State took care of business comfortably in doing so. Sunday's game was headlined by the new Victory Over Cancer initiative, began in partnership by former shortstop Trey Turner and our head coach Elliot Avent. That was a spectacular event to see on Sunday, sporting the bright yellow uniform, spreading cancer awareness. It was overall a great weekend for NC State baseball as a whole. However, did leave a little bit of a sour taste in our mouth. Our starting outfielder, Josh Hogue, very unfortunately broke his leg in Saturday's game with his collision with center fielder Eli Serrano. He will miss the rest of the season, and this is a brutal, brutal time to lose yet another starter.
Yeah, this injury bug is going around, and what a freak accident too. What a because how many times have we seen collisions in the outfield when two guys have a slight miscommunication, everybody gets up, everybody's fine, and you just shake it off, man. But this is, it's just one of those moments where, again, we talked about, I want to say we got through the hardest part of the schedule. I think that's factual. I think that this April that we went through, you're not going to get more difficult than that in terms of concentration of good teams back to back to back. With that being said, we still have tough opponents ahead. With that being said, the ACC tournament is still ahead of us as well, and it's just, it's just one of those things where you're just kind of stuck, and you look for a replacement here, and you might even have to shuffle the deck a little bit in terms of moving some guys around who are already playing to see where you can get the most positional value to replace them. But it's so unfortunate that this happened when it did.
And on Sunday, they did move our second baseman, Luke Nixon, out to right field. You might see that'll be the mainstay for the rest of the season, and maybe at least until Noah Souls can get back, and hopefully that's sooner than later. But we talked a lot about the can't get right-itis for basketball during the regular season. Baseball has it in a sense of like injuries. It seems like it's just a revolving door, whether it's Willitson at the beginning of the year. You lost Whitaker here for the last month due to a sickness, still kind of up in the air when he might return. Noah Souls went down for an extended amount of time. and now you lose Josh Hogue for the rest of the year, and he's played all of the year in the outfield. It's a really tough time to lose a starter. Like Kenton mentioned, still have tough opponents here in the month of May, 2 of which are on the road. You got to go down to Tallahassee to play Florida State, and then up to Charlottesville to play Virginia before you wrap up your last home series against Wake Forest at the Doak. Truthfully, you're not going to be able to replace a guy like Josh Hogue, but shuffling the lineup enough around, you just hope that you can supplement the production you did get out of him. And he's hitting over 300 for the season. He's been a very consistent hitter. It's going to be tough to replicate that type of production at such a crucial part of the year, but nonetheless, it was I guess you could call it a bittersweet weekend. You did sweep Ball State. You picked up all 3 games that you needed to win, but it's no time to celebrate. You got tough opponents on the way. You have UNCW on Tuesday. We've seen our documented struggles in midweeks all season. It feels like anytime we play a midweek, you can almost chalk it up as a loss. That has to change this week. There is no more time to mess around and drop another midweek that you feel like you should have a good shot at taking. So despite the injuries, despite the adversity, it's time to ratchet it up a couple more notches in the intensity factor. But it's time to go for NC State baseball. They're playing a little bit better baseball, and they just got to continue weathering the storm here. So good weekend overall, but they're going to have to keep this thing rolling. That'll do it for us here on Monday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us. Be sure to hit that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us what you thought about Payton Wilson getting drafted in the 3rd round, and tell us what you thought about the rest of our signees, including our other draftee and Dylan McMahon. Anything else you got, put it down in the comment box. I'll be sure to get to it. And if you have not already, mash that subscribe button. We will see you all tomorrow. And until then, go Pack.
Go Pack.